Winter Storm Fern getting ready to cause significant and dangerous impacts from Texas to New England. This is America's Morning Headquarters. I'm meteorologist Stephanie Abrams alongside meteorologist Molly McCollum and Jim Cantori.
We have the potential for feet of snow falling, plus catastrophic ice accretions. Nearly 30 million people are already under winter storm watches. Those will, in short order, be upgraded to warnings. Dozens of states under those watches right now, and we have a long way to go. Have an emergency kit ready to go. Travel this weekend could be impossible, and we could see prolonged power outages.
That is true. Even more dangerous. We are going to see more Arctic air into next week. So if you're stuck without power, that could be a life-threatening situation. Plus, whatever precip falls around could stick, even if it falls as rain. These are our wind chills. But notice as we go into our Monday morning, Atlanta could end up being all rain with this event. Could. Monday morning, we're down to 27.
Right.
So if things are still wet, does that then freeze and cause some black ice on the roads?
Not to mention where we don't even have precipitation falling. We've got some seriously cold, that is true, dangerously cold air in the northern tier, and it's going to stick around for a minute.
It is.
So, Jem, we want to start in the southern plains because, of course, that is where Winter Storm Fern is going to get started.
Yeah, we're going to break down all these different regions, northern Louisiana, southern Arkansas. This could be an absolute disaster.
And you think about tree damage that happens, potentially from an event like this. That goes on for years. That takes years to recover.
And you got to move the trees before you can get the power back online.
It is a whole process. It's got to be safe, too, for the crews to get out there. Essentially, we have a long way to go with this one. Let's start in Houston, where the cold air is going to arrive much later, and that's going to give us most of the duration of this event in a plain cold rain. It is not going to be comfortable, but at least it's going to be rain. It's Sunday that I'm concerned about. That's when we start to see the cold enough air that we make the transition into freezing rain or freezing drizzle, depending on how much moisture is left at that point. But we have so many overpasses in the Houston area that spells trouble, even if it is just a glaze. How about Dallas? We're going to go on a journey in Dallas. 50s and raining on Friday. We slowly fall into the 40s, still rain. Let's stop this on Saturday morning. Now we've got temperatures that are hovering just below the freezing mark. You're starting to see the changeover into freezing rain. The big question in Dallas is how long do we stay in freezing rain? Because a transition to sleet faster, that would be great news in Dallas, right? That would mean less road impacts. I say less because we'll still see some just with the time period of freezing rain. Eventually, we get into some snow, but that is on the backside of this system when the moisture is already moving on. So it would just be a very brief window of some snow on top of the ice and the sleet that we're going to see in Dallas. So essentially, we are seeing all winter weather precipitation types. How much ice? Again, still in question how long we stay in that freezing rain, but a quarter to half an inch of ice, that is enough to cause power outages, impossible travel, and of course, even more ice when you get just to the south of Dallas. How about snow? Very sharp gradient. This is exactly what Jim was showing in the Little Rock area, where we can go from 1 to 2 inches of snow. All of a sudden, you're in double-digit snowfall. That's as you get into the Red River Valley area and then into Oklahoma, where most of the state of Oklahoma, OKC, Tulsa, you are in for some pretty big snow. The cold air arrives sooner. It cools the entire air column, and that's going to allow you in Tulsa, Stillwater, Oklahoma City. The I-40 corridor is the dividing line here, and north of that, likely to stay in snow throughout the duration of this event. We see the changeover happen for areas like Shawnee and Norman and Chickasha, all the way down to Ada, Oklahoma. This is going to be one of those events that we only see every couple of years in the state of Oklahoma, where we're talking double-digit snowfall for many of us. I mean, you look at some of these amounts, you can go years in Tulsa and OKC only seeing these very small snow amounts. And this could be a big one that, it's going to stay around for a while because the air is so cold behind this. Let's talk Little Rock for a second, because the forecast, it's a lot more complicated. You could end up right on that line of transition between freezing rain and sleet. I think sleet is the more likely scenario here in Little Rock for the duration of the event. And then you go just north of that and you have those big snowfall totals. And then, of course, Shreveport and Texarkana. That's where we're talking about significant ice accretions. Yes, we start with rain, but I want you to watch the duration of how long we stay in the freezing rain in Shreveport and Texarkana. That would be devastating ice accretions. And then on the backside of that, Steph, maybe even just a little sprinkle of snow on top of that. But at that point, the damage is done.
It is. And notice how cold it stays as well. And so that's going to keep everything frozen. Tuned to the Weather Channel.
A long way to go. Well, in today's WeatherWise, we've partnered with Native to share some easy tips for protecting your skin this winter. When cold temperatures leave your skin feeling dry, constant moisturization is key. Moisturizing, staying hydrated, and even adjusting your shower temperature will help keep your skin staying fabulous this winter. So let's take a look at this week's Skin Health Report. All of that cold air that Steph was just talking about, that is going to be colder and drier air that's surging all the way down to the Gulf Coast. But right now we've got those higher dew points in place, some pretty rapid temperature changes on the way too, and changes in the air mass too. So we're going to go from what is more of a muggy to noticeable to very dry Arctic air that's spilling in. Now, some of us, we already have that in place, right? The northern tier, that's where we're going to see wind chills consistently well below zero as we see this entire event unfolding. No precipitation, but it's going to be very cold. How about Philadelphia, where the dew point forecasts, again, let's measure how much moisture is in the air. Pretty dry air in place over the next 24 hours. How about a place like Detroit, also where you've got that colder, drier air that's locked in right now with our dew points in the teens and the 20s. But Houston, look at this. You're about to see some very big changes with more of a muggy air mass in place. By Sunday, that Arctic air is knocking on the door. Welcome back this morning to America's Morning headquarters. We already have winter storm watches that have been issued from New Mexico all the way into portions of the Mid-South. No surprise, right? We are approaching winter storm Ferns. These in short order will get upgraded to advisories at very least, but we'll see winter storm warnings. We'll see some ice storm warnings that are thrown out there. And by the way, there's some bitter cold air that's moving in behind this. So yes, winter weather, precipitation type is a big concern, but the duration of the cold air behind this is going to be a problem in itself. Some very cold, dense air that's going to be seeping in pretty far to the south. And of course, we're going to be watching for all different types of winter precipitation. Anything from a plain cold rain, and even spots that see that, you will eventually see a changeover to some freezing rain, like say in Houston. But the zone of ice, where we're going to see consistent freezing rain, areas like Shreveport and Texarkana, and I would even throw Dallas into the mix too, where you could eventually change over to sleet and snow. But the big question is, how long do you spend in the freezing rain? That will determine how high your ice accretions are. Oklahoma, more likely to be snow throughout the duration. But look at Little Rock. You are right on that line of who sees the freezing rain, sleet, and who sees the snow. And it is going to be an extremely sharp gradient in some of these snowfall amounts. And that's because of the precipitation type. That is always important in the South, right? And it is never easy. It is never straightforward. It is always a complicated forecast. And this one certainly falls in line with that. Shreveport, you see temperatures crashing down. This is now Saturday morning, 31. We're 29 in Dallas. We're 22 in San Angelo. But look at this huge temperature difference between Dallas and Houston. That cold air continues to funnel all the way down to the Gulf Coast, but of course, it's first in areas like Dallas and OKC, which, by the way, there we go Saturday afternoon. It's 10 degrees in OKC. It's single digits, Wichita, Kansas City, Springfield. Notice this transition to sleet in Little Rock. How long do you stay in the sleet? Well, that'll eat away at some of the eventual snowfall amounts, because most of us will see snow from Dallas to OKC, Little Rock on the backside of this, but it just depends on how long we spend in that transition time. As mentioned, it's a very sharp gradient between some of these lower snowfall amounts and some of these higher snowfall amounts. I think, Jim, it's incredible. I was looking close to the Dallas area, kind of zoomed in with that view. You know, maybe 1 to 2 inches of snow in Dallas, right, depending on, you know, how we end up.
Eventually, right?
Eventually, right? We'll get there. But then you get up to the Red River Valley, and it's like blockbuster snow. That's not that far away.
There's really an amazing snow gradient from Texas through southern Oklahoma, through Arkansas, up into Tennessee and Kentucky, maybe even
always up with southern systems, right? The fine tuning happens. Let's talk about Houston for a second, because we will spend most of this storm in a plain cold rain. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to feel nasty outside. It's this that I'm concerned about. It's this period of time on Sunday morning where we have that Arctic air that spills all the way down to the Gulf, that we could see a couple of hours of freezing rain. That is more than enough to cause problems in Houston, right? Think about how many overpasses we have, and not a lot of, resources to treat the roads too. Dallas, it's going to be an adventure for you in Dallas. We are going on a roller coaster ride of winter precipitation. We start Friday 40s rain. Let's fast forward to Saturday now. Saturday morning, temperatures either at or just below the freezing mark at the surface. That's going to transition us to freezing rain. How quick do we see that changeover to sleet? Well, that's a big question, and that's an important question because the faster that we see that changeover, that limits our problems with ice accretion and potentially some of those really big, tree damage, power outage situations. But we'll have to see how quickly that transition happens. And then on the backside of that, potentially a light amount of snow that comes through. This is a look at some of the ice accretions. Now, Dallas in that range of 1/4 to 1/2 inch of ice, that is more than enough to cause a lot of problems and impossible travel. And just to the south of Dallas, the amounts are even higher. And that puts us anywhere from damaging to crippling, even a glaze. To the north of Dallas, that's enough to make travel difficult to impossible. But look at the snowfall gradient. This is unbelievable when you look at this, that we could be seeing, 1 to 2 inches of snow in Dallas, and then you go just across the Red River Valley area, and all of a sudden you're talking double-digit snowfall. Let's talk about some of that double-digit snowfall because OKC, Tulsa, you were in line to see a pretty hefty snowstorm. The I-40 corridor is going to be the dividing line, at least initially, as that cold air moves in. To the south of I-40, we'll have a window of sleet. But notice, on Saturday, this is now Saturday morning, we have temperatures in the single digits and teens in Oklahoma. And it's not done snowing yet, so that snow continues throughout the day on Saturday. This is really going to allow for those big snowfall totals to start to add up. It is still snowing by Saturday night, Sunday morning, and also take note of the temperatures on Sunday morning. These are air temperatures, not wind chills. We're going sub-zero in a few spots, even OKC waking up right at 0. These are the snowfall amounts. Yes, we see snowstorms in Oklahoma, but it's only every couple of years that we see something like this. Not to mention, we haven't seen any snow in Oklahoma, Tulsa, Little Rock so far this year. Let's jump to Little Rock now because this is a lot more complicated of a forecast. You're going to end up right on that transition line where we see in between snow into sleet. How long do we stay in sleet? That's going to eat away at your snowfall totals. And if you were watching last hour, you'll notice that there's already been some changes in the forecast amounts, right? They're a little bit lower now for Little Rock. Now, 8 inches of snow would still be a big storm for Little Rock, but I don't think this is all snowfall this is accounting for. There's sleet mixed in here, and of course, that will make a difference in what you actually end up with as far as some of those totals in the end. And then just north of Little Rock could be one of those zones that we see big snowfall. Texarkana, Shreveport. Unfortunately, this is going to be an all ice situation for you. Once we see that transition over into the freezing rain, this is going to happen Saturday morning. We stay there for pretty much the entire duration. Now, yes, do we see some sleet Texarkana? I think that would be a much, more believable situation to get into some sleet in Texarkana back into areas in eastern Texas. But Shreveport, you could be just right in that zone, that kind of perfect alignment that we see freezing rain for the duration of Saturday with some snow, very brief snow on the backside of this. But the problem is right here, Steph, is that we're going to stay cold. So all of the ice, it's going to stick around.
There's going to be a lot of school cancellations, even on Monday. I will tell you that much.